Hi, today we're having a look at New World Update 1.0.1. This is a relatively short one, but also an important one, because it fixes some of the more game-breaking issues that the game currently has. So I'm very happy that it's coming relatively quickly after launch, and some of the changes actually surprised me a little bit. I didn't expect them to go through this early. So we have a little bit of an explanation on the plan here. They talked a little bit about increasing the server numbers and so on. We're not going to go into detail about that. That's just basically a summary of what has been done so far, and that you can find updates on the forums and that you can report issues on the forums. But then that brings us to the changes. So they've implemented the groundwork for the character server transfer, and you may see elements of that work in the in-game store. Yeah, they're continuing to work on this feature, and we'll have more information on how the system works later this week when they release server transfers. In this context, it's worth keeping in mind that currently on some servers you cannot create new characters. I don't know if you will be able to transfer characters there though. I feel like you might not be, because it's kind of the same thing in a way, but we'll find out. And that could lead to some complication, because initially the offer was basically play the first 2 weeks on other servers, and then there will be server transfers, and then you can move back to your friends or something like that. So we'll see how that one plays out, but we don't need to talk about that too much, because I'm sure as soon as we're closer to that date, we will learn more about how exactly that'll go down, and hopefully that'll mean that people can return to their server, even if that server, or their original server, even if that server is currently closed off to new players, because otherwise it would kind of separate some people. As far as I'm aware, the initial transfer in the first 2 weeks is supposed to be free as well. So we'll see if that turns out to be correct, and then later you will have to pay for it if you do it after that window is over. So pay a close eye to news on that if you're interested in transferring your character. When it comes to War, there's a very crucial change. You may have noticed that I made a video about that just yesterday, talking about this particular issue. So what was the problem was that projectiles would simply not hit targets even though you were aiming in the right place. There would just be no damage numbers. You would use ammo, but nothing would happen. Now what they did is they changed the turret projectiles from physical projectiles to hit scan detection. They say this should help performance in War with fewer objects being spawned into the world. Now, what is currently happening, or what the problem here is, that basically there are too many objects flying around at once for the server to calculate it properly, I would assume, and too many effects going on, and therefore the projectiles were simply not counted. Basically, they were over the cap of what the server can handle at any point. By moving them to hit scan, they no longer have a projectile, and that should no longer be a problem. Now, what I don't know is what that means for the way this is interpreted. Because hit scan, normally, when you think of like a sniper weapon, it's just you shoot at something and it gets hit immediately. There's no weapon drop off or anything like that. Apparently there are ways to basically have a hit scan that has a targeting ray, so you can keep something like projectile drop off even on a hit scan. I don't know how exactly that works though, and if that will be the case here. If that's not the case, and the projectiles are actually just shot forward now and hit scan on all siege weaponry, that would be pretty insane, because there are certain siege weapons that kind of rely on being relatively hard to aim in order to stay balanced, I would say. And if now all weapons are just straightforward, like hitting where you click and it's hit scan, then we would see a pretty heavy shift in the projectile meta, I would say, in the siege weapon meta. Even though it's not really established yet, but at least on higher levels, we would most certainly be changing up our strategies in that regard. So we'll find out what exactly this means, how exactly this feels. Once I know more, I will of course let you know. We'll have plenty of wars to come where we can test that. Hopefully it means that those projectiles will land better in general. The problem is that it doesn't solve the issue for other projectiles that are used in wars. So bow users, for example, have the same issue with their projectiles sometimes not being counted. Healers and mages have the same issue with AoE sometimes, as far as I'm aware, where they simply don't seem to be able to hit certain targets with certain effects. And yeah, that seems to remain a problem for now. And we'll see how that can be solved, and how far that can be solved. And yeah, I don't think this is quite over yet. I think there are more fixes needed for wars in the long run, but it's a start, and I'm glad they're tackling it that early. My concern was that they might push this back a little bit and focus on more single-player experience first, but I'm glad that they're focusing war this early on. Then we have changes to the AFK prevention. So what they're doing is they're adding additional AFK prevention to ensure that people cannot fool the existing system with something like simulated mouse movement, simulated clicks, and so on. and that already kicks you from the server at the moment. And they said in a recent post as well that if it gets worse, then they might include more drastic measures. So I guess they might give you temp bans or something if you try to abuse that to stay in the game instead of queuing like everyone else. In addition to that, the AFK warning message is now at 15 minutes instead of 20 minutes, and the AFK disconnect no longer happens at 25 minutes, but now happens at 20 minutes. So if you're AFK for too long, you're just going to get kicked. There's also something about the world queue here. We added a confirmation screen when a player attempts to leave the queue for a world, asking the player to confirm if they're intending to leave the queue. So basically what happened is you would be in queue, tap out of the game, tap into the game, you can accidentally click off and you would immediately be out of queue. If you very quickly click play after that, you could get back in, but if you were just a little bit late on that, you had to re-queue, which is obviously extremely frustrating if you've been in queue for hours. So now you get a warning before that to make sure that you don't accidentally leave the queue. So very good change here as well. And then we have a bunch of bug fixes. So certain times the interact key wouldn't work, a certain emote with the pirate stance didn't work properly, with the barrel not appearing in that emote. Then there were certain activities that wouldn't reward coins as they are intended to be. There was a very significant bug where if you interrupt the fast travel animation while in a house, that would basically mean you could not get out of your house at all. So you're literally just stuck there, and unstuck doesn't work, recall doesn't work, nothing works. You're just stuck until, well, the fix comes out, so until today basically. So very good that that one's fixed. Fixed an issue in territory standing rewards where some localized text was missing, so nothing big here. An issue with players asking to claim achievements titles multiple times, or being asked to claim achievement titles multiple times after logging back into the game, despite already having claimed those rewards. That's something that's actually been around since, I think, closed beta, so good that's finally gone. Fixed an issue causing lag animations to freeze. That one looked really funny if you got it. Fixed game crashes related to New World Twitch integrations. Fixed a rare issue where players could enter a state where they could not be hit by most attacks. So it's very similar, I guess, to the first day bug, but only very few players experienced it this time, so it's not nearly as bad. Fixed an issue where certain item containers could be looted infinitely. That one, obviously a very big one, so basically somebody could just farm the same container forever. And fixed an issue where abandoning event notification could sometimes persist after the player abandoned the event. That is something that was really annoying. It would just be there until you relogged, essentially. Then we had some AI fixes. This is just for specific mobs. We had this for Pastor Walsh here with a very aggressive spawn. Then we had some other ones in Bullrush Walsh spawning lower than intended, slower than intended. Then there's something for Overseer Zane here and for Master Zin. So there's just a few different fixes for those. And then we have a few quest fixes as well. And the first one here is worded very interestingly. Added missing journal information about the recommended quest level for players attempting to unlock the second faction rank. What this essentially means, I think, is that they are changing the number on the recommended level from 20 to 24 because currently you cannot unlock it before that. That's at least what I'm guessing it's about. Which, yeah, they're putting that very nicely. I think that is correcting a number as far as I can tell. Then fix an issue where resetting the Blessings of Earth quest would basically block the progress on the main story. This is something that a lot of people experience, or quite a few people experience, where they could simply not progress in their main story at all after that, which is obviously very frustrating, especially if you try to fix it by resetting it already. Then there was the quest Azoth Fulminate not being available to players if they did other quests first. I think this is an issue for some quests in general at the moment, that they seem to not appear for all players. Yeah, for no obvious reason at least. So I'm guessing there will be a few of those fixes in the future. This is something that we have here with Goodwill Squashing and Aruda Jam quest as well. So basically finish one and you can't get the other. Then there were some issues with the Barkeep. We couldn't get the quest either. And we got another few quests here down here that have similar things. Taste for Revenge would not allow you to finish the Predator Prey and Great Expectations quest. Curse of the Ebony Hawk prevents you from getting Bond's Gambit. Expedition into Psycho prevents you from getting 1/3 at a time. Strength of Earth prevents you from getting Fading Light and Azure Tears. And Twisted Metamorphosis prevents you from getting Blessings of the Fallen. And Facets of Light and Darkness prevents you from getting Descent to Frosted Slumber and Transmuted Iron into Dust. So there are more of those, I think, that are in higher level areas likely that haven't been found yet. I'm fairly certain. But this is a good start. I'd say, like, for a first patch, relatively early into the game while they're basically still working on stabilizing the servers in general and figuring everything out. I think the quest, or the patch schedule here is relatively quick, and I'm relatively glad to see that. And we will see how they go from here, but so far I think this is a very good start in terms of changes, and I'm looking forward to the next set. Hopefully we'll see some item changes with the first like major patch as well, because this is basically just more fixing patch. But for now, this is where we stand, and at least we should be able to use siege weaponry in wars hopefully decently now, and I think that's a really important one. Plus, obviously, a lot of the people that couldn't play before because of weird bugs that prevented them from progressing at all, now being able to get out of their houses or get onto the main quest again. With that, thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get updated for other New World news. And other than that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. SLOTH out.